My mother and father grew up in the Codroy Valley here, and my mother's side is 3 generations. They came from Shetty Camp, Nova Scotia, and my father's people came from way back in early 1800s, late 1700s, come from Dorset, England. Well, I guess they lived off of mostly fish when they landed here first, and they had to clear land and grow their own crops.
My grandparents, they lived in the valley for a while, years ago. When they were growing up, they would have at least grown cabbage and potato and carrot and turnip.
We had 10 kids in our family, so they made sure they had enough potatoes and cabbage and carrots and turnip for the winter. Everybody had your own cow, your own sheep, your own horse, grew your own meat and your own vegetables, and we weren't rich, but you were in good health.
Our mother, they had to have gardens. They were very poor. Their gardens kept them alive.
There used to be train carloads of food going to Codroy Valley. They used to ship it to St. John's. It used to be known as the breadbasket of Newfoundland at one time. But since we joined Confederation and stuff came in way cheaper from the mainland and all that, it kind of died out. Gradually people were getting out of it because life was getting easier. A lot of people worked like down at CN or the railway. There was more jobs come around and it was easier to go out and work for a living than farming. You got to love it to stay at it because there wasn't a big profits in it.
The amount of food that was grown and produced here on the province was amazing. But that was 2 or 3 generations ago.
For many different reasons, we've been losing agricultural land. Our population of farmers is generally aging and not being replaced by a younger generation fast enough.
The young people generally don't know much about gardening or farming anymore. So that knowledge is being lost, which is kind of interesting in a place that is so different from the rest of Newfoundland in terms of its farminess.
Newfoundland and Labrador absolutely does have a food security problem. We are, of all the provinces in Canada, we have the second highest rate of food insecurity. So it's 14.7% of households in this province are food insecure.
As we know, in Newfoundland, at times of, bad weather, ferries are canceled, food doesn't get stocked on the shelves, and that can be really worrisome with food security.
We're self-sufficient on a few things. We produce enough eggs, we produce enough milk. Those things, even if we were cut off from the mainland for a long period, wouldn't be a problem. But we import 70% of what we eat.
When you look at produce, fruits and vegetables, it's probably higher than that, probably closer to 90 or 95%. So I would say that Newfoundland as an island is definitely food insecure. If all of a sudden transportation systems between the island and the mainland were to stop, we would find ourselves without nutritious food very quickly.
Realistically, we have about a 2 or 3 day supply of fresh produce on the island of Newfoundland at any one time. So after a few days of disrupted supply, you do see the shelves start to thin out.
It's a bit difficult to eat really healthy here. People in the valley have it a little easier because we're still very connected to farming, so there's always fresh produce throughout the summer. And people do know enough about storing and preserving to keep things going through the winter. But for a lot of people, this area has the same food issues as the rest of Newfoundland. There's very much a food swamp. Like, it's hard to get really good, healthy food. Like, there's enough food, but it's not necessarily nutritious.
A lot of communities that are really distant from any source of safe, healthy, or affordable food. So you might not have a store for 20, 30, 100 kilometers, or the stores that are local to you might not have a wide selection of food. And so part of that is an access piece geographically.
And so now you talk with people about, well, how could we address food security in Newfoundland? The assumption with too many people, I think, is that, well, we can't grow it here. Well, that's just not true.
But then we heard about this project. We got really excited. We said, oh, there's other people here in this region who are interested in food security. And it was cool to meet some of the people who have been helping with the project, finding out that there are people around here who have similar concerns to us. We had somebody come in from a wonderful farm in New Brunswick, Hayes Farm, and she gave a workshop at the College of the North Atlantic in Port aux Basques, and we helped organize it. And she gave a workshop about gardening, just sort of tips and help for people who've always wanted to garden but just don't know where to begin. And she also invited some local farmers to give their own presentations on just different tips and ideas about gardening. It was very well attended. We didn't really know what to expect, but a lot of people did end up signing up and ended up showing up. And it was a very positive event.
People loved being able to ask a million questions and talking about the issues behind food security in Newfoundland and about how to change that for themselves. So I think there is a lot of interest on the ground, like with individuals. They really want to know this information because we haven't been disconnected from it for that long.
It was so positive that the following day we organized the unveiling of a community plot in the Cod Valley. We had some local residents, Gabby and Dom Gale. They are the ones who provided the space for the learning garden. They run a big local nursery here that we both work at. We basically just planted a bunch of stuff, and Kate was there and she was explaining some tips about how to plant, and it was a really fun day. Everyone got a little dirty, everyone had their shovels, and it was a very well attended event as well.
I attended the workshop yesterday. We want to support this community initiative, something very important, I believe, for the community. And community gardens, from my understanding, have been used to really help food insecurity right across the world. And we should all have access as a human right to nutritious food, safe food. So by doing community gardening and getting together and sharing knowledge and information, people can actually control what goes into their food, into the reduction system, and thereby controlling what goes into their bodies in the end.
I really enjoyed yesterday, getting together and chatting, because when I started, I didn't really have a clue. We were fumbling with, putting the soil in correctly, and did we put it in mounds, did we keep it flat? How many seeds goes in a hole? We didn't know anything.
We came here because we wanted to learn. I don't want to get on my knees again. I knew I was going to meet fantastic people, and my aunt was right. Right on. And I think getting all this information is, we all need it. And I think the young people should learn this in school as well, because I think one day we got to go back to this.
This is a companion planting wheel. So it shows you what plants grow well together for various reasons. I don't know all the science behind it. You look up what else you want to plant today. So for example, we want to plant beets and we also want to plant cabbage. So they go well together. So it's a good idea to plant them in the same plot. Wow. So it's like, yes, good, we're planting.
Is it a good idea what I'm going to do in the bathtub, just put one crop?
Yeah,
do I need to put
no.
something else with it?
You don't have to, no, it's fine. If it's just one thing, it'll be fine. Melissa was saying that peas and carrots go really well together because one of them secretes an enzyme that helps the other one grow.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there are like interactions like that actually.
Yeah.
So probably when I'm doing my
sense.
beets, I should do another thing with it.
Yeah.
I would definitely start small, or maybe even try a couple planters. But don't try to do a big plot like we're doing here today. You'll just get frustrated and give it up.
The best case scenario, I'd say, is that more people just take away this knowledge and do their own gardening in their backyard. That's one thing about the Cod Valley is everyone has a yard to have a garden in. Mm-hmm. It's not like a city where you have to rely on community gardens. Everyone can have a garden in their yard if they want. So that's our hope, is that everyone just starts small.
Whatever's grown in my garden, that's what I have. And I don't have no meat, no chicken, unless it's moose and chicken that's free-ranging chicken. Yeah. So on my table, it's what's in my garden. And the food, it just tastes awesome, don't it?
This is our dome. We built the dome greenhouse because we're in a very windy area. It's called Rec House, and the winds get to be 180 200 kilometers an hour. The structure is really good because there's no corners for the wind to catch. So we have tomatoes in this greenhouse. We've already picked most of them. It was pretty jungly in here. Right now we're picking the ones remaining, and they'll ripen off the vine.
I was looking up recipes for green tomatoes, and there's so many, so you don't even need to let them ripen off the vine necessarily. So here's part of our tomato harvest that we brought in so they could ripen. As you can see, we have tons. Another thing we've been doing with the tomatoes is boiling them down so we can use them in the future for sauces and stuff. And also I experimented with making tomato jam. So there's ginger and lemon in there and tomatoes. It's actually quite good.
Techniques from, root cellaring to preserving to ways of cooking, ways of gathering food, all of that is still alive here, and that's a huge resource that we can leverage. And I think we're seeing this revival of interest in that, right? So there's, at every level, I think there's a possibility of pushing a more localized food system.
A whole bunch of community members gathered at the Wetland Center, this beautiful space, and we all brought a dish from something that we grew or something that we know somebody who grew, or something as local as possible. Not a bag of chips, or something that was homemade, made with love, and you could really taste it. It was great.
We had an awesome variety of selection that was there.
Just amazing, amazing. And it all grows here.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes.
From berries to vegetables.
There's no comparison when it's fresh. None.
No.
I picked spaghetti squash this morning.
You can tell. You can tell the difference. You can tell when it's fresh, and you can tell that it hasn't been shipped for halfway across North America. It's amazing. I love it.
There's a lot of local knowledge here, and it's unfortunate that it seems to be getting lost in other parts of Newfoundland and Canada and the world.
Although I'm not a gardener, I'd love to learn how to garden, and I think it's so important to have food that's fresh, local. I think we should be supporting people like Gabby who teach us how to grow food. And flowers. We had edible flowers. I just think it's so important. We should be encouraging more people to do it.
We want to do another harvest potluck this year for sure. Make it an annual event.
That was such a positive event. Like, people still talk about it. And I don't think it's ever been done before. It had ever been done before. So we were really happy we organized that, and there was turnout. We put signs up all over the valley and made a few Facebook events, and it was wonderful.
So to have a community really take ownership and move with it is huge. And so when we get that, we have a little celebration dance and say, that's great. But even, some of it we've heard back from community members, in many places, this is the first time they've had in years to come together as a region and talk with each other. So another sign of success is that all of a sudden their relationships are built, and you've got a network beginning to develop across different communities that wasn't there before. So there's lots of things that happen that, in a perfect project, you get all those. If we get most of those, we're pretty happy.
I really do think that things are reinvigorating and not so much changing as going back, because there's a lot of people who are expanding their gardens, putting in new ones, and there's a lot more livestock. It's a return to traditional practices.
So we're really excited to be part of it's kind of like a global movement, but centered around local food.
So it's the end of the year, and we didn't eat these beans as fresh beans, and now they have matured. And this variety is called Orca beans. They're really, really kind of cool looking.
skin. They kind of look like little orca whales. They're also called yin yang beans. So you can dry them and then soak them and cook them, or what we are gonna mostly do is save them for seeds for next year. We're multiplying our yield of beans. And we want to start a seed library in the Codroy Valley so we can share.